backbone of the railway. They already pushed technologies and making higher speeds and industrial works. Through the 19th and 20th centuries, all the steam locomotives have already been built all over the world. However, though, despite all this, by the mid-20th century, the diesel started to arrive and began to replace the work. As of today, so many diesels and electrics are making the advanced locomotives anywhere in the world. And the steam locomotives itself, well, all these locomotives are gonna be scrap heap, will be melted down and used again. But others are so lucky, they've already been preserved by VR, and others by the Heritage Sea, and others rescued from Barry. As of now, some of these engines have returned to the main line and others still in the Heritage Railway. Some classes still existed, but some classes don't. And that's why I'm going to count down for top 15 British steam locomotives that still exist today. Number 15. The Highland Railway Jones Good class. To start with, we're going to look at some of these late 19th century and early 20th century designs. Right now, on the Highland Railway, that will be no other than the Jones Good class. These 15 460 goods locomotives are built in 1894. It's been designed by David Jones, chief mechanical engineer of the Highland Railway, and it's one of the very first 460s to be built, and named Jones Goods, named after its designer, David Jones. These 460 10-wheelers are being designed for pulling goods trains for the Highland Railways of Scotland. They did well pulling goods, but often see on passengers during summertime days. In 1923, the Highland Railway was merged with some other railway companies to become the London Midland and Scottish Railway, already renumbered by the LMS, and then to become as a classification as 4Fs. Unfortunately, working on the LMS was to have very short careers for these engines. Between 1929 and 1940, all these engines are withdrawn for scrapped. 14 were gone, only one is preserved. This engine, number 103, has been preserved in 1934. Between 1959 and 1965, this engine has an operational condition and been restored, and still seen on mainline rail tours. As of now, he was on a static display on the Riverside Museum in Glasgow, where as you can see there through the details on the museum piece. Pretty good locomotive in painted yellow for preservation, isn't it? Number 14. The London Midland Scottish Railway Coronation class. Now we come some of the largest locomotives built for the UK. That's not including honorable mentions, that is. That will be none other than the London Midland and Scottish Railway Streamline Coronations. In the 1930s, Sir William A. Stanier, chief mechanical engineer at the time, decided to build a larger express passenger locomotives. So, in 1937, it was the year of the coronation of King George VI. Sir Stanier had decided to make a superpower larger Pacific to make a streamlined look. Originally, this could be the name the larger princess, but later changed it to Coronations, named after the coronation of King George VI, as a commemoration. The first of 5 batch was streamlined. They rolled out the crew works in 1937, and later more coronations appeared in 1938, number 6225 to 6229. This class pioneer, this has some significance. In 1937, 6220 coronation made a world speed record for steam traction, reaching a speed of 114 miles an hour. And actually, it did!
A supreme effort, and Coronation has done it. 114 miles an hour, the highest speed yet attained in the Empire.
Indeed, it was a world record. Some coronations are painted with Caledonian blue, with silver stripes, and later painted the LMS Crimson Lake red, with golden stripes. These streamlined Pacifics are going to pull the greatest streamlined passenger train in the LMS, the Coronation Scott. It runs from London to Glasgow in 6.5 hours. And also, it was inspired by the music of the Coronation Scott, and later use of a Paul Temple theme music. Of course, I'm not gonna play this song because copyright. These engines are perfectly to pull passenger trains over the London Midland Scottish Railway, or all the high-speed travels.
Wait!
There's more! These engines are not only just the streamlined engines. In fact, Stanier had redesigned it to make it some fetch. The result is a non-streamlined version of the Coronation. Number 6230 to 6234 had rolled out in 1938, and without the streamlined casings, is much look different than the same classes, but it looks the same. One engine in particular, 6229 Duchess of Hamilton, had already swapped identities with 6220 Coronation. Why? She's going to America for a 1939 New York World's Fair. To use it, they had to acquire a warning bell and a headlight, and not including an American chime whistle. And it was eventually returned back to its home country in 1943. During and after World War II, these locomotives are being painted wartime black, so to provide the bombers didn't destroy some locomotives. But actually, it didn't. Stanier's predecessor, Henry George Ivet, decided to remove all these streamlined casings into these conventional shapes with the non-streamlined locomotives. And these engines will be look like, with a curved round smokebox door. And these engines was being the nickname semi-streamlined coronations, or just semis. There were many coronations had involved in an accident, including this one, number 46242, City of Glasgow, had run into a local train at Heron-Wheelstone. It was totally damaged, and later it was being rebuilt into this conventional shape. And I think it was totally damaged, isn't it? During the BR days, all the Coronation locomotives are doing very good. But until the 1960s, in the early 60s, their career is about to be taken over by diesels. Between 1962 and 1964, all the Coronation locomotives are withdrawn from service rapidly and quickly scrapped, leaving 3 behind. 2 in static display and 1 operational. This engine, 6229 Duchess of Hamilton, was being purchased by Billy Butlin. In the early 80s, it was being restored to its operational condition until the 1990s. In 2000s, it was being returned back to its streamlined form, and still here at the National Railway Museum in York. Another coronation to be on static display is number 46235, City of Birmingham, and it was still here at the Birmingham Science Museum in Birmingham. And lastly, 6233 Duchess of Sutherland, also purchased by Butlin. In 2002, it was being restored to its operational condition, and it was still seen here today on the main line. Number 13. British Railway Standard Class 5 460s. Now we come to the most modern BR standard designs, yet again not include honorable mentions, and that will be no other than the Standard Class 5 460 locomotives. These 460 10-wheelers are used for mixed traffic duties over British Railway system, and it was been designed by BR Chief Mechanical Engineer Robert Riddles. They run over Derby Works and Doncaster Works between 1951 and 1957, making a total of 172 locomotives at this type. Additionally, these locomotives have been fitted with Walschaerts valve gear, while others have been fitted with a Caprotti valve gear. Name of the designer of this valve gear, Arturo Caprotti. Sadly, when modernization plan was underway, these steam engines was all being replaced by diesels, and with that, the Standard Class 5 is about to be withdrawn between 1964 and 1968. As of these engines, all the class were all gone forever. But it wasn't. Only 5 members of the class have survived the Cutter's torch, 1 purchased directly from BR, and 4 saved from Wooden Brothers scrapyard. Most notable of this engine is number 73082, has given the name Camelot. At 1959, was being given the name when it was drawn steam locomotives, the oldest steam locomotives. And this engine is still here at the Bluebell Railway, and others are in the overhaul and others in operational conditions. As you can see these engines in this day. Number 12. The London North Eastern Railways Class A1s and A3s. Now we have come to the best passenger expresses of the East Coast Main Line. That will be the classes A1s and A3s. What's the difference of these two engines? Well, let's find out. Sir Nigel Gresley, Chief Mechanical Engineer of the London and North Eastern Railway, had already designed these two Pacific types. These engines are built from the Great Northern and later emerged with the LNER and classified as A1s. The prototype engine was named Great Northern after the Great Northern Railway, and other is Sir Frederick Banbury, while the third one has not yet completed until 1923, where it became LNER, and this engine has no name on it yet. And then, in 1924, a third engine has went to the British Empire exhibition at Wembley and finally got its name. In its name, it's Flying Scotsman. A legend was born. In addition, Gresley needed a locomotive to be a new version of the A1s, and that's exactly what he did. He already designed a newer version of the A1s and will become the Class A3, except from the little differences. The footplate of the A1s are the right-hand driving, while the A3s, however, has the left-hand driving. And of course, they are looking different. In 1928, the LNER had announced the very first non-stop run from London to Edinburgh. For non-stop locomotives to use it, 4472 Flying Scotsman was the chosen one to pull the inaugural train. To use it, they have to use a corridor tenders. Only 10 A1s have been fitted with some corridor tenders to change crews while non-stop, and 4472 completed its inaugural journey, and it was quite a celebrity. Years later, Flying Scotsman makes some headlines of the LNER. On November 30th, 1934, the engine had reached 100 miles an hour, and it was the first locomotive to reach a speed record officially. That's what it was. That's what just been recorded. Then in 1935, an A3 2750 Papyrus made a speed record to reach 108 miles an hour, and it was a recording of a high-speed, non-streamlined locomotive to do so. As time went on, the A1s and A3s are doing their job very well. During the war years, they managed to pull troop trains and evacuations. By this time, all the A1s are going to convert themselves into an A3s. The first one is in 1942. It was being rebuilt into an A3. And then the others into 1940s, the late 1940s that is. Except one member of the A1. It is Great Northern, who has been transformed into this different class. Thompson disliked too much and decided to rebuild into its specific, classified as an A1/1. And you think it was a good locomotive?
Well, no.
Nah, this one sucks, because it has a cylinder so far back, and this one gave notorious for slipping, even started with the heavy trains. And this engine looks totally ugly, I suppose. However, that's what it is. That's what it goes. What Thompson do, Thompson do. When British Railways was nationalised in 1948, these locomotives have already been taken up the apple green liveries and wartime looks into the colourful looking BR liveries, the BR blue and Brunswick greens. And they have been applied some modifications. They already add double chimneys to make them smoother. In addition, they already add smoke deflectors for the driver's crew so they can see with smoking. By the 1960s, however, the writing was on the wall. The first one was withdrawn in 1959. It was being never fitted with smoke deflectors. And then, by the 1960s, the class will begin rapidly disappeared one by one. And in 1966, the last A3, Prince Palatine, was withdrawn from service. In the end, only one A3 had escaped from the scrapper's torch. And I'm sure that who is the one that survives? It is, of course, Flying Scotsman itself, number 4472, was withdrawn in 1963. It was being purchased by a businessman, Alan Pegler. For many years, this locomotive has circumnavigated the globe, including on a tour to the United States and Australia. And they already appeared on the Railway series, and you may recognize the locomotive who it is. Indeed, it was Gordon the Big Engine. That's right. And Scotsman had already participated some more events, like Rail 150 and Rocket, for the anniversary of the Rainhill trials. In the late 90s, it was fitted with double chimney and smoke deflectors. Was from the 60s, and it fitted with a chime whistle similar in South Africa. In 2006 and 2016, this engine has a 10-year overhaul and was returned to steam 10 years later. And it was already been painted into a BR Brunswick green livery. In 2023, it's celebrating 100 years old. And here we have a new incident with giving us hard bump or slow speed derailment. As of now, this year, the engine had already visited to the Nene Valley Railway, which just doing for a visit. And the engine was the most famous. Should call famous, I should say. Number 11. The London South Western Railway, Class T3. To conclude part 1, we're going to the south of England, and that will be the London South Western Railway's Class T3, another late 19th century design. Again, not include honorable mentions. These 440 locomotives are designed for passengers and not being designed for goods. These engines were designed by William Adams. Between 1892 and 1893, 20 locomotives are rolled out in 9 elms. These engines have been seen pulling passenger trains from London Waterloo all the way to Southampton docks, and they are not the same engines as they pull a special train to the Titanic. However, it did perform very well, as well on the Crack Express trains. In 1923, the LSWR was merged with the Southern Railway, and they have been seen pulling the secondary passenger trains, like the suburban services, for example. Sadly, working on the Southern has a very short careers. The Southern Railway has withdrawn the entire class, which was just old. So between 1930 and 1945, all the class are immediately withdrawn and ruthlessly scrapped. However, it wasn't the only one who was being scrapped. It was this one, number 563, had already been preserved, and it was a sole survivor of this class. However though, this engine has a big significance. Number 563 has been starred on the stage productions, so-called The Railway Children, and it appeared in the countries in Toronto and even the UK. It had been featured The Railway Children on the locomotive itself. Now that's a showbiz, isn't it? As of now, the engine was at the Swanage Railway and been recently restored to its operational condition, and it could be seen here pulling special trains around the railway. That's part 1. Be sure to stay tuned for part 2.